first thing I want you to understand is that at 36,000 feet down, sound doesn't travel the way you think it does. It thickens. It arrives late. So when I tell you I heard knocking on the outside of our hull at full trench depth, I need you to know I didn't believe it either. Not at first. We were 11 minutes from the target when the sonar painted something it shouldn't have. I was in the pilot's seat of the Halcyon 3, a deep submergence rescue vehicle with a working depth rating of 11,000 meters and a real-world ceiling closer to 10.5 if you wanted to come back up with your spine intact. My co-pilot was a woman named Mariana Trench, Navy trained, 3 trench dives under her belt. The calmest person I have ever sat next to in a pressure hull. Behind us in the rescue sphere were 2 medics named Polk and Vin, suited and strapped in, ready to receive survivors through the mating collar. The mission was simple on paper. A research submarine called the Avery 9 had stopped transmitting 41 hours earlier at a depth of 10,900 meters in a section of the Mariana Trench that the charts didn't have a name for because nobody had reason to name it. 13 souls aboard. Last contact had been routine. No distress call, just silence, and then a faint emergency pinger we'd been tracking for the last 6 hours of descent. 11 minutes out, the sonar return doubled. "Say again," Renya said, leaning into the screen. I tapped the display. The Avery was where it was supposed to be, sitting on a shelf of sediment about 400 meters ahead. But there was a second mass directly beneath it, larger, with a return profile that made no sense. Soft edges, irregular contour. Sonar doesn't lie, but sometimes it gets confused by thermoclines or biological columns. This wasn't either of those. Could be a ridge feature, I said. It's moving. I looked again. She was right. Whatever the second mass was, it was drifting laterally beneath the Avery at maybe 1 knot. A ridge does not do that. I keyed the surface. Topside Halcyon 3, we have a secondary contact under the target requesting guidance. The reply came back delayed, garbled by the column of water above us. Halcyon topside, repeat your last. I repeated it. The pause before the next response was longer than physics required. Halcyon, proceed to target, disregard secondary contact, confirm. Renya turned her head a fraction toward me. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Disregard is not a word you use about something moving on a sonar screen near a sub full of people you're trying to save. Confirmed, I said, proceeding to target. I cut the comms and adjusted our descent angle. The thrusters hummed through the hull in that low register that always made my teeth feel loose. Outside the forward viewport, the water was the color of nothing. Not black, not blue, just the absence of any reason for light to exist. Our forward floods carved a cone about 12 meters deep, and within that cone, particulate matter drifted upward instead of down, which is what marine snow does, and what I had stopped finding comforting somewhere around dive 4. At 8 minutes out, the Avery 9 came into the cone. She was sitting upright on the shelf, which was the first thing wrong. A submarine that loses power and sinks does not land like a parked car. It tilts, it rolls, it digs a furrow. The Avery was perfectly level. Her sail was clean. Her dive planes were extended in the neutral position. From this distance, she looked like she was waiting for a tug. "Pilot," Renya said quietly, "do you see her ports?" I did. The viewports along her starboard side were lit from the inside. Not emergency lighting. Emergency lighting at depth is red, dim, battery conserving. The Avery's ports were warm white, full output, like a hotel hallway. Like she had shore power. Polk, I said over the intercom to the rescue sphere. The target has interior lights. Be ready for ambulatory survivors. Copy, Polk said. He sounded relieved. We had all assumed we were coming down here to recover bodies. We were not coming down here to recover bodies. I brought us to a station-keeping hover, 10 meters off her port flank. Up close, the hull was wrong in a way I couldn't articulate at first. Then Renya said it. There's no biofouling. A submarine that has been on the bottom for 41 hours does not have biofouling. A submarine that has been on the bottom for 41 years has biofouling. The Avery's hull was patchy with rust the color of dried meat, thick growths of something pale clinging to her welds, and long vertical streaks of corrosion that looked like they'd been weeping down her sides for a decade. That's not the Avery, I said. Hull number? Renya said. I panned the floods. The hull number was on the sail, painted in flat white, half-eaten by rust. A -IX-441, the Avery's designation unmistakable. Topside Halcyon 3, I said, visual on target. Hull condition is inconsistent with mission timeline. Significant corrosion and biological growth. Repeat, the Avery looks like she's been down here for years. This time the pause was even longer. When the reply came, it was a different voice, not our handler. Someone older. Halcyon, proceed with mating and recovery as briefed. Do not attempt external survey. Acknowledge. Renya looked at me. I keyed the mic. Acknowledge. I cut the comms before they could tell me anything else. Pilot, Renya said. I heard them. They knew. I heard them, Cole. She didn't push it. She turned back to her board and started running the mating collar pre-checks, because that is what professionals do when their handlers have just confirmed through omission that the brief was a lie. I edged us forward along the Avery's flank toward the aft escape trunk, which was the standard mating point. The floods washed over her hull, and where the light touched, the pale growths twitched, just slightly, like seagrass in a current. There was no current at this depth. Did you see that? I said. Yes. Tell me it was the light. It was the light. She didn't believe it either. We were 2 meters off the escape trunk when the knock came. It was a single sound. A short, deliberate impact against the Halcyon's outer hull, somewhere on the underside, near the rescue sphere. It was loud enough that Polk yelped over the intercom. Vin swore. What was that? Polk said. What the hell was that? I froze on the controls. At 11,000 meters, anything that touches your hull from outside is, by definition, a problem. Debris doesn't drift here. There are no whales. There are no curious dolphins. The pressure is 15,000 pounds per square inch, and the things that live in it do not knock. Halcyon, hold position, Renya said into the intercom, calm as a checklist. We have a contact event, stand by. Another knock. Same place. Same intensity. Then a third, slightly higher up, closer to the sphere's hatch. I swung the underside camera. The feed came up grainy, lit by the belly floods, showing nothing but the silt cloud our thrusters had stirred up. I held the camera steady and waited for the cloud to settle. When it did, there was nothing under us. The seabed was empty. Cole, I said, the secondary contact. Where is it? She checked the sonar. Her hand stopped moving over the screen. It's gone, she said. Define gone. It's not on the return anymore. It was here, and now it isn't. Sonar contacts at depth do not vanish. They move out of range, or they descend below your beam, or they merge into terrain. They do not blink off. Polk's voice cracked over the intercom. Pilot, are we mating or are we leaving? I looked at the Avery. Her warm white windows were still lit. From this angle, I could see into the nearest one, a section of corridor. Painted institutional beige with a handrail and an open hatch at the far end. There was no one in the corridor, but the hatch at the far end was swinging slowly, the way a door swings when somebody has just walked through it. There were 13 people on that submarine. I keyed the intercom. Polk Veen, prep the collar, we're mating. Copy. Cole. On it. I brought us in. The mating collar engaged the Avery's escape trunk with a soft mechanical sigh. The seal locking. The pressure equalization beginning. The whole process takes 4 minutes. 4 minutes during which we are physically attached to the target and cannot disengage without venting the trunk. At minute 2, the knocking started again. This time it wasn't on the Halcyon's hull. It was on the Avery's. From the inside. Slow, patient, knuckle soft, working its way along the corridor we had just been looking into through the viewport. Tap, tap, tap. Moving aft toward the escape trunk we were locked onto. Polk, I said. My voice did not sound like my voice. Whatever opens that hatch on your side, do not assume it's a survivor. Do you copy? The intercom was silent for a long moment. Then Polk said very quietly, "It's already at the hatch." The pressure equalization completed. The seal indicator went green. From the rescue sphere, I could hear the sound of the Avery's escape trunk wheel beginning to turn. From the outside, we hadn't touched it. The wheel turned a quarter rotation and stopped. We all heard it stop. Through the mating collar, through 2 pressure hulls, through the dead silence of the trench, the metallic clack of the dogs disengaging on the Avery's side carried into the rescue sphere like somebody had rung a bell next to our ears. Polk said something I couldn't make out. Vin said, "Jesus." Then the wheel turned another quarter and another, and the hatch on the Avery's side cracked open from within. "Polk," I said, "do not open our side. Do you copy? Do not open our side until I clear you." "Copy, holding." "Cole, give me hull cameras on the trunk." She brought the feed up on the center display. The mating collar had its own little camera mounted in the airlock between the 2 hatches, a fisheye lens that showed the entire trunk interior in a pale, distorted bubble. The Avery's hatch was open about 3 inches. Through the gap I could see warm white light, nothing else. No hand on the wheel, no face, no movement. "That hatch did not open itself," Rania said. "I'm aware." "Pressure differential?" "Equalized, we checked." "So someone opened it." "I'm aware." The hatch swung wider. It moved at the steady, unhurried pace of a hand pushing it from the other side, except there was no hand. It opened until it was flush with the trunk wall, and then it stopped. The trunk on the Avery's side was empty. Just the corridor beyond it, beige walls, that same warm hallway light, and the faint hum of ventilation that should not have been running on a sub that lost power 41 hours ago. "Halcyon topside," I said into the comms. I didn't bother waiting for them to call me. "Target hatch has opened from the interior with no visible operator. Repeat." The hatch opened by itself, awaiting instruction. The reply came almost immediately this time, different voice again. Younger. Reading from a script. "Halcyon, proceed with boarding. Recover any personnel. Document interior conditions." Do not repeat. Do not retrieve any objects, samples, or biological matter from the target. Acknowledge. I sat with that for a second. Acknowledge, I said. Then I cut the comms and turned in my seat as far as the harness would let me. Vin, listen to me very carefully. You are going to suit up in pressure rigs before you cross the collar. Full hard suits, sealed helmets, internal air. You do not breathe the Avery's atmosphere. You do not touch anything with bare skin. You go in, you sweep for survivors, you come back. 20 minutes maximum. If you are not back in 20, I am venting the collar and we are leaving. Do you understand? There was a silence, then Polk said, You'd vent us? I would vent the collar. You would still be on the Avery's side. You'd seal her hatch behind you, and we'd come back with another team. That's a death sentence. So is bringing whatever that is back into our pressure hull. Another silence. Then Vin said, Copy, pilot. 20 minutes. I heard them start moving in the sphere. The hard suits at depth weren't true diving suits. At this pressure, no suit could keep you alive in open water. But they were sealed atmosphere rigs, the kind you'd wear for a contaminated boarding. Helmets, gloves, internal scrubbers. They would buy us 30 minutes of independent breathing and a hard barrier between their skin and whatever was on the other side of that hatch. While they suited up, I stared at the camera feed. The Avery's corridor stayed empty. The hatch at the far end, the one I'd seen swinging earlier, was now closed. I hadn't seen it close. Cole, I said, clock that hatch. The far one, tell me if it moves. On it. I watched her watch the screen. She is not a woman who fidgets, and she was not fidgeting now. But there was a stillness to her shoulders that I had only seen once before. On a recovery dive off the Aleutians, where we'd brought up a fishing trawler with the crew still belted into their seats. That stillness was the stillness of someone deciding very privately that they were going to come home. Polk and Vin radioed ready. I cleared them for the inner hatch. The Halcyon's mating collar opened with the standard hiss of equalizing atmospheres, except there shouldn't have been anything to equalize. We'd already matched. Both sides should have been the same air. The hiss meant the Avery's atmosphere had a different composition than ours. Different pressure, different mix, something. I made a note of it. I did not say it aloud. Polk and Vin were already in their helmets. They couldn't smell what they were stepping into, and that was a mercy. Crossing now, Polk said. The fisheye showed them moving through the trunk in single file, bulky in the hard suits, helmet lights washing the curved walls. Polk reached the Avery's hatch first. He paused at the threshold. Pilot, he said, I'm seeing scratches. Where? Inside lip of the hatch frame, around the wheel, like somebody clawed at it. From which side? A pause. From the inside of the Avery. They were trying to get out. Vin spoke up behind him. Polk, don't stop, move. Polk stepped over the lip. Vin followed. The fisheye lost them as they entered the corridor. I switched to their helmet cams. Polk's feed came up first. The corridor in shaky first person, beige walls, a handrail he reached out and steadied himself on. Vin's feed came up beside it. Two angles of the same hallway, lit warm and steady. Forward to the control room, I said, standard sweep pattern. Don't split up. Copy. They moved. The corridor was maybe 12 meters long and terminating at the closed hatch I had been watching. As Polk approached it, his light caught something on the floor I hadn't been able to see from the camera in the trunk. A boot. Just one. Black, Government issue, laces loose. Sitting upright on the corridor floor like somebody had stepped out of it and walked away barefoot. "Pilot, are you seeing this?" Polk said. "I see it. Leave it. Keep moving." Polk stepped over the boot. Vin did not. I saw Vin's feed pan down, hold on the boot for a long second, and then, against everything we had just agreed, I saw his gloved hand reach down and pick it up. "Vin," I snapped. "Drop it." "It's wet, pilot." "Drop it." "It's wet and it's warm." There was a sound on the radio then. Not from Vin, not from Polk. A third sound, somewhere behind them in the corridor, soft and low and unmistakably a voice. Not words, just the shape of a voice. The way you hear someone talking through a wall, male, calm, pleasant. Vin dropped the boot. "Pilot," Polk said very quietly, "did you hear that?" "I heard it. Get to the control room now." Polk hit the wheel on the far hatch. It turned freely. Too freely. The kind of freely that means someone has been working it recently, kept it oiled, kept it ready. He pushed through into the next compartment. This one was the Avery's mess. 4 tables bolted to the deck. A galley counter along one wall, coffee cups on the tables, plates with food on them. Actual food soft and pale and unidentifiable, but food sitting where it had been left. A book open on one of the tables face down to hold the page. A pen on top of it. The lights were on. The ventilation was running. There was steam rising from one of the coffee cups. 41 hours. That coffee should have been ice. The food should have been a slurry. The book's pages should have been swollen with humidity. Instead, the mess looked like the crew had stood up 2 minutes ago and walked into the next room. "Polk," I said, "tell me about the air in there." "My readout says 19.9% oxygen, 0.03, CO2, normal pressure. It says the air is fine." "Your suit's reading the Avery's atmosphere? Through the intake?" "Yes, pilot. The air on this submarine is breathable." "Don't breathe it." "Wasn't planning to." Vin was at the galley counter. His helmet light was on the open book. "Pilot," he said, "the book is a log book." "Whose?" "Captain's, I think. The handwriting's neat." "What does it say?" A long pause. "It says that they came up through the deck plating at 0400. Riggs is gone. Mendel is gone. We are sealing the forward compartments and waiting for the surface." "What's the date on the entry?" Another pause. Longer. "There's no date, pilot. There's a number. It says day 412. I felt the cold come up the back of my neck the way it does in dreams where you understand, before you understand anything else, that you have made a mistake you can't take back. 41 hours. Day 412. Either the Avery had been down here for over a year, or the Avery we had come to rescue was not the Avery that was sitting on this shelf, or the captain who wrote that entry had been writing it for a very long time without sleeping, without eating, without aging the coffee in his cup. "Polk," I said, "get out of the mess. Forward to the control room and now." "Copy." They moved. Polk through the forward hatch first, Vin behind him. The next compartment was a passageway with crew quarters on either side, doors mostly open. Bunks neatly made. A pair of glasses folded on a pillow. A child's drawing taped above a desk, which made my stomach turn because nobody had children on the Avery. She was a research vessel with a 13-person scientific complement, and nobody had brought a child's drawing aboard. Polk's feed swept past the drawing without lingering. He was moving fast now. He had stopped narrating. Both of them had stopped narrating. Poke, status. Moving forward, 2 more hatches to control. Vin. Behind him. Their voices were too flat. The way voices get flat when people are concentrating on not panicking. I switched to the Halcyon's external cameras while they moved. I didn't want to look, but I needed to know if anything had changed outside. The floods showed the Avery's hull, the mating collar, the empty seabed beyond. The pale growths on her welds were not moving anymore. They were oriented, all of them, every clump, every thin tendril was pointing in the same direction, toward the Halcyon. Coal, I said. I see it. How long has it been like that? I don't know. I wasn't watching. The growths were not waving. They were not pulsing. They were just aimed the way a flower tracks the sun, except there was no sun. And we were the only thing in their world that emitted light or warmth or noise. Polk's helmet cam jolted. He had stopped at the next hatch. Pilot, he said. There's water on the deck. How much? A puddle, maybe a liter, right at the hatch. It wasn't here on the way in. I mean, we haven't been here, but there's no source. The hatch is sealed, the bulkheads are dry. Salt water? My suit says yes, salt water, cold, recently introduced. Behind him, in the corridor they had just walked through, I heard the sound again. The voice. Closer this time, still no words, still pleasant, still male. Polk, open the hatch and get into control. Vin, watch his back. Polk turned the wheel. The hatch swung. The Avery's control room opened up in his helmet light, and for the first time since we'd locked onto her, I saw a person. He was sitting in the captain's chair. His back was to the camera. He was wearing a uniform. His hands were on the armrests. He was very still. Captain? Polk said. His voice cracked on the word. Captain, this is Rescue Diver Polk from the Halcyon 3. Can you hear me, sir? The man in the chair did not move. Captain? Polk said again, stepping into the control room. Sir, we're here to bring you up. Finn came in behind him and immediately said, Polk, stop. What? His feet. The helmet cam tilted down. The man in the chair was wearing one boot. His other foot was bare. The bare foot was the wrong color, not pale, not blue, not the color of a body that had been sitting at this depth for any period of time. It was the color of the Avery's hull, patchy rust, pale growth between the toes. Polk, I said, back out, back out. The man in the chair turned his head. Not all of it, just enough that the helmet cam caught his profile in 3/4 view. His eye was open. His eye was not an eye. I will tell you exactly what I saw because I owe you that. Where the eye should have been, there was a small, neat hole, perfectly round. And inside the hole, something was moving. Not an insect, not a fluid, a texture slow and patient, the way the pale growths on the hull had been moving when our floods touched them. He smiled. His mouth was full of the same texture. Welcome aboard, he said. His voice was the voice from the corridor. Polk did not scream. Polk was a professional, and he had been to bad places before. Polk took one step backward, raised his sidearm, the issued underwater pistol that was useless at depth and useless against anything that wasn't soft tissue, and said very steadily, Pilot, we are leaving, right now. Copy, I said. Move. They moved. They moved fast, back through the passageway, past the child's drawing, past the open bunk doors, Polk in front, Vin behind, both of them running in hard suits in a way that Hard suits are not designed to allow it. But the mess was different when they came back through it. The coffee cups were gone, the plates were gone, the book was gone, the tables were bare, the chairs were stacked in the corner. The galley counter was wiped clean. The mess looked the way a mess looks when a sub has been decommissioned and stripped, except we had walked through it 90 seconds ago and it had been set for a meal. "Pilot," Vin said. "Pilot, the room changed." "Keep moving, don't stop, don't look at it." They didn't stop. They reached the corridor. The boot was gone too. The far hatch, or our hatch, the trunk, the way home, was still open. Behind them in the mess they had just left, I heard the chairs being unstacked. One at a time, slow, deliberate. "Polk, run." He ran, Vin ran. They hit the trunk hatch at full speed, Polk going through first, Vin diving in behind him, and as Vin's boots cleared the lip of the Avery's hatch, I saw something behind him in the corridor. Just a shape, just a suggestion in the warm white light. The outline of a man standing very still at the far end where the captain's chair had been. The man raised a hand. He waved. Polk slammed the Avery's hatch shut. The wheel spun. He dogged it down. He was breathing in big, ragged gulps that his suit's mic was picking up like a freight train. "Pilot," he gasped. "Pilot, vent the collar now." "On it." I hit the vent. The Halcyon's mating collar disengaged with a hard mechanical bang that shook the whole vehicle, and we drifted backward off the Avery's hull, and through the forward viewport I watched the warm white windows of the research submarine, and I watched in every single one of them faces appear. They were not the Avery's crew. They were not anyone's crew. There were too many of them. The faces did not move the way faces move. I want to be precise about this because precision is the only thing I have left from that dive. Real faces, even still ones, have a kind of micro motion to them. The small shifts of breath, the involuntary blink, the way skin settles. The faces in the Avery's viewports did none of that. They were arranged behind the glass the way merchandise is arranged in a shop window, pressed close, aimed outward, aimed at us. I counted 17 in the 3 viewports I could see clearly. The Avery's crew complement was 13. "Cole," I said, "get us off this shelf. Vertical thrust, slow ascent. I don't want to spook anything." "You think we can spook it?" "I want to behave like we can." She brought the vertical thrusters up. The Halcyon lifted off the seabed in a slow, controlled rise, and I watched the Avery's viewports recede beneath us, and the faces tracked our movement, not by turning. The viewports themselves are fixed. The faces simply were where we were, angled toward us no matter where we drifted, which is not how glass and skulls work in any reality I'd been trained to operate in. "Polk, Vin, status," I said. "In the sphere," Polk said. "Hatch sealed, suits on. We're not coming out of these until we're on the surface, pilot." "Copy. Stay buttoned up." "Pilot." "Yeah." "Vin's bleeding." I closed my eyes for half a second. "Where?" "His left forearm. Inside the suit. He doesn't know how. The suit's intact. There's no breach. But there's blood pooling at his elbow joint." "Vin?" "I hear you, pilot." Vin's voice was steady, but it was the wrong kind of steady. The kind of steady that comes after the part of you that panics has already finished panicking and gone somewhere else. "It's not a lot. It's just there. Did you touch anything in there? Bare skin? Anything?" "No." "You picked up the boot." "With my glove. The glove's intact, I checked." I let it go. We were 90 meters off the bottom and rising, And the conversation that needed to happen was not one I wanted to have with Vin, listening on an open channel. Cole, comms? She brought the surface link up. Topside, Halcyon 3, aborting recovery. Target is non-viable. Repeat, target is non-viable. Returning to surface with original crew. The reply was immediate. The older voice again. Halcyon. Negative on ascent. Hold at depth. Stand by for instruction. Renya looked at me. Say again, topside, she said. Hold at depth, Halcyon. Do not ascend. Stand by. I keyed in. Topside, this is the pilot. We have an injured crewman and a confirmed hostile environment. We are ascending. A pause. Halcyon, the pilot, is reminded that ascent profile is not at his discretion. Hold at depth. Surface team is en route. Stand by. Surface team, I said. Stand by, Halcyon. The line went quiet. Renya cut the comm and looked at me, and her face had done the thing I had only seen it do once before, the Aleutians thing, the coming home thing. They're not coming to get us, she said. No. They're coming to make sure we don't come up. Maybe. Pilot. I know, Cole. I held the Halcyon at 100 meters off the bottom. Below us, the Avery sat on her shelf with her windows full of faces, and the pale growths on her hull had reoriented again. They were not pointing at us anymore. They were pointing up, all of them. A forest of small, deliberate arrows aimed at the surface, 20,000 feet above us, where a vessel we had not been told about was apparently descending toward our position. How long until they reach us? I said. Renya checked the sonar. If they came down hot, in a fast deploy DSV, 4 hours. If they came down in something the size of us, 6. Air? We have 18 hours of scrubber. More if we cut non-essentials. Fuel for ascent? Full tanks. We could surface in 90 minutes if we burned it. And if we surface, they intercept us at the rendezvous and we don't go home. Probably. And if we stay, the thing on the seabed has 4 hours to do whatever it's setting up to do. Probably. Polk's voice came on the intercom. Pilot, am I hearing this right? Are they leaving us down here? Polk, we're going to figure this out. Take care of Vin. Pilot, Vin's arm. Pilot, you need to see Vin's arm. Polk, in a minute. Pilot, now. I switched to the rescue sphere camera. Vin had his left arm out of the suit's sleeve. The suit was sealed at the shoulder ring, which is something the rigs are designed to do. You can isolate a limb if you have to, vent and reseal. He had done it because he had needed to look. The skin of his forearm was the color of the Avery's hull, patchy rust, pale growth between his fingers. The growth was moving, not fast, not aggressively, with the slow-oriented patience of the things on the Avery's welds. It was moving up his arm toward his shoulder, and as I watched, a thin tendril of it tested the rim of the shoulder seal, found it, and retracted. Vin was looking at his arm with no expression at all. Poke, I said, reseal his suit. Now full glove, don't let it pass the elbow. The shoulder seal won't take the glove. The interface is wrong. Then amputate Polk. The sphere went silent. Pilot, Polk said quietly. I'm a medic. I know what you are. I'm not doing that down here. Polk, I'm not doing it. His voice was very calm. We don't know what it is. We don't know if cutting it spreads it. We don't know anything. I am not taking his arm off in a pressure sphere on a guess. Polk. Pilot. Vin, this time. His voice was tired. Polk's right. Don't make him do that. Just keep me sealed in here. Keep the sphere isolated. If it gets past my shoulder, I'll tell you, and then we can talk about it. Finn, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, pilot. Get us up. I cut the sphere feed. I couldn't watch it anymore. Renya was looking at the sonar. What? I said. The contact is back? The secondary? Yes. Where? She turned the screen so I could see it. The secondary mast, the soft-edged thing that had been drifting beneath the Avery when we arrived, was now beneath us, directly beneath the Halcyon. And it was rising. Vertical, I said. How fast? Slow, maybe a meter every 10 seconds, but it's rising, pilot. It's rising to meet us. Size? Bigger than when we got here? Significantly bigger. I keyed the underside cameras too. The belly floods showed nothing at first. Just water, just particulate. Then, at the very edge of the cone, a shape resolved. Pale, wide, featureless. It looked like a sheet of fabric drifting upward, except it was the size of a parking lot, and it had no wrinkles, no folds, no edges that ended where edges should end. It just kept extending past the limit of our light in every direction. It was not a creature, not the way creatures are. It was a surface, the way a forest floor is a surface, the way a city, seen from far above, is a surface. Cole, I said, lateral thrust. Get us off it, anywhere. Pick a direction. Which direction? Pick one, Cole. She picked one. The Halcyon slid sideways through the water at maybe 2 knots, which is a sprint at this depth. The shape below us did not lag. It tracked. Whatever direction Renya pointed us, the pale surface beneath simply was there, always centered under us, always rising. It's matching us, she said. I see it. Pilot, it's matching us at every vector. It doesn't matter where we go. I see it, Cole. Pilot? What? It's not a thing. It's a floor. It's the floor coming up. I think that was the moment I understood the Avery. The Avery hadn't sunk to this shelf. The shelf had risen to her. Whatever this surface beneath us was, it had come up under the research submarine 41 hours ago, or 412 days ago, or whatever number was actually true. And it had taken her, held her, studied her, used her windows to display what it had made of her crew. And now it was doing the same to us. Vertical ascent, I said, maximum burn. Now. Renya hit it. The Halcyon shuddered as the main thrusters dumped everything they had into vertical. We accelerated upward at a rate that was going to make our ears bleed and our joints scream. But at this depth, that was a problem for 15 minutes from now. And 15 minutes from now was a luxury I was happy to commit to. The pale surface beneath us followed, slowly, patiently. A meter every 10 seconds, then a meter every 8, then a meter every 6. It was not catching us. We were faster. But it was not falling behind either, the way physics required it to, the way anything subject to inertia and drag should have. Topside Halcyon 3, I said into the comms. We are ascending under emergency protocol. Repeat emergency ascent. There is a contact below us, submerged mass, dimensions unknown, behaving non-physically. We need a surface intercept and we need it now. The reply came after a long delay. Halcyon, negative. Maintain depth. Surface team will reach you in 3 hours, 12 minutes. Hold position. I cut the line. I left it cut. They want us to hold while it eats us, Renya said. They want it to eat us, I said. Holding is just the polite version. We climbed. 3,000 meters. 4. The The Halcyon's hull groaned as the pressure differential changed faster than the engineers had ever intended. I watched the depth gauge unwind. I watched the sonar where the pale surface still followed, perfectly aligned with our shadow, 50 meters below, and closing in increments so slow they were almost theoretical. At 5,000 meters, Polk came on the intercom. "Pilot." "I'm busy, Polk." "Pilot, Vin's not talking." I switched to the sphere feed. Vin was sitting upright in his harness with his helmet off. He had taken his helmet off. The helmet was floating beside him in the sphere, tethered to a clip. His face was normal. His eyes were open. He was looking at the camera. The skin of his arm had reached his collarbone. It had stopped at the line of his shirt collar. The growth had not crossed onto his neck. It was waiting there, oriented upward, the way the things on the Avery's hull had been oriented upward. Vin was breathing the Avery's atmosphere. He had been breathing it since he'd taken his helmet off, which I now understood he'd done some time ago while we were focused on the surface below us. "Polk," I said, "how long has his helmet been off?" "I don't know, pilot. I've been watching the comms. I just looked over." "Vin." Vin smiled at the camera. It was not Vin's smile. Vin's smile was crooked on the left side from a hockey injury when he was 19. The smile on the camera was symmetrical. "Pilot," Vin said. His voice was Vin's voice. The cadence was Vin's cadence. The smile was not Vin's. "Pilot, you should slow down." "Polk, get away from him." "Pilot, the air in here is fine. You should come back to the sphere. We can talk about it. There's room." "Polk, get away from him." Polk was already moving. The sphere is small, but Polk had pressed himself against the far bulkhead, his sidearm out, pointed at Vin, his hand shaking inside the glove. Vin kept smiling. "Pilot," he said, "the people on the Avery are fine. They asked me to tell you." "They're fine. They're just not in a hurry anymore. You don't have to be in a hurry either." "Polk, can you isolate the sphere from the cabin?" "Yes." "Do it." "Pilot, that traps me in here with him." "Polk, I will surface this vehicle and I will open the sphere on deck and you will walk out. But I cannot have him in the cabin. Do it." There was a pause. Then Polk reached up, without taking his eyes off Vin, and hit the sphere isolation lever. The internal hatch between the sphere and the cabin sealed with a heavy thunk. I saw the indicator on my board go red. The sphere was now an independent pressure environment. Its atmosphere was its own. Whatever was happening in there could not reach Renya and me through the air. Vin, or the thing that was using Vin's voice, looked up at the sphere camera. "That's all right," he said pleasantly. "We have time." I cut the sphere feed. I could not watch that anymore. I will not pretend I could. Renya was staring at the depth gauge. 3,000 meters, she said. 2825. The contact. Still below us, still closing, slower now. I think the water column is hurting it. Hurting it how? It's losing coherence on the sonar. The edges are getting fuzzy. Whatever it is, it's adapted to the trench. It doesn't like coming up. Then we keep going up. Pilot? What? If we surface at full burn from this depth with the sphere isolated, with Vin in it, with a surface team waiting to intercept us, what is your plan? I didn't have one. I had pieces of one. I had the knowledge that the Halcyon's secondary tender was anchored 80 kilometers from the official rendezvous point because I had argued for redundancy on the dive plan, and the dive plan had given me redundancy as a courtesy. I had a transponder code that the official surface team did not have. I had Renya, who was already keying that code into our comms without being asked, because she had been in the room when I'd argued for the redundancy, and she remembered. "Cole," I said, "how long until we can ping the secondary tender?" 1,200 meters. Their hydrophones won't pick us up before that. Set it, burst transmission, coordinates, status, request emergency surface and silent recovery. No open comms with the primary team. On it. We climbed. At 1,500 meters, the pale surface below us stopped following. I watched it on the sonar. It held at a depth of about 2,000 meters, hovering, oriented upward. A vast, featureless plane suspended in the water column with no apparent means of support. It did not pursue. It did not retreat. It simply waited. The way the things on the Avery's hull had waited. The way Vin was waiting in the sealed sphere below us, and it was not done. It was just letting us go. That should have been a relief. It was not. Because at 1,200 meters, when Renya sent her burst transmission to the secondary tender, the reply came back in 11 seconds. It was not from the secondary tender. It was from the primary surface team on the secondary tender's frequency, using the secondary tender's transponder code. The voice was the older one. "Halcyon, we have your signal. Welcome back. We are ready to receive you." Renya stared at the comm screen for a full 3 seconds before she moved. Then she yanked the headset off and set it down on the console very carefully, the way you set down something that might be live. "They have the tender," she said. "They have the code, at least. They have the tender, pilot. You don't get that frequency without the physical box. They boarded our backup." When? It would have to have been before we launched. Days ago, maybe weeks. I let that settle. The redundancy I had argued for had been compromised before the redundancy existed, which meant whoever was running this operation, whoever the older voice was, had known I was going to argue for it, had known Renya would be the one keying the burst transmission, had known the depth at which we would attempt it. They had not just planned for our success. They had planned for our specific failure, the exact shape of it, down to the frequency we would reach for when we ran. "They want us to come up," I said. "They want us to come up thinking we got away." "Yes." "And then they want us at the rendezvous they've staged?" "Yes." "With Vin?" "With Vin." I looked at the depth gauge. 800 meters. The light was beginning to change outside the viewport. Not visibly, not yet. But the water had a quality to it that meant the surface was no longer a theoretical concept. Somewhere up there was sky. Somewhere up there was a vessel waiting to take us aboard. And the people on that vessel knew what was on the Avery. And they had known before they sent us down. "Cole," I said, "how far is the actual coast?" She didn't ask which coast. She pulled up the chart. Guam is 260 kilometers northwest, closest land, closest anything that isn't them. Range on the Halcyon at the surface. On battery, maybe 40 kilometers before we're dead in the water. We're a submersible pilot. We're not built to drive home. What about the life raft? The raft has an emergency beacon. They'll triangulate it the second we deploy. What if we don't deploy the beacon? She looked at me. You want to go up in an open raft on the Pacific with no signal, 260 kilometers from land, with a man in the sphere who isn't a man anymore. I want to go up alive, Cole. I want options. Tell me what we have. She thought about it. The Halcyon climbed 600 meters, 5. There's a commercial shipping lane 40 kilometers east of our current position, she said finally. Container traffic. If we surface dark, drift to the lane, light a flare when we have a hull in visual, they'd pick us up. Their crews aren't part of this. They're just merchant seamen. And the Halcyon. We scuttle her, open the ballast vents, sink her, walk away in the raft. They get nothing back. No data, no vehicle, no us, on their boat. And Vin. She didn't answer. I switched to the sphere feed. Vin was sitting where he had been sitting. The growth had not advanced past his collar. His helmet was still floating beside him on its tether. Polk was still pressed against the far bulkhead, sidearm still drawn, but his hand was no longer shaking. Polk had reached the part of fear where the body simply runs out of adrenaline and goes administrative. Vin was looking at the camera again. "Pilot," he said conversationally, "you're going to scuttle the boat." I keyed the intercom. I shouldn't have. I did anyway. "How do you know that, Vin?" "You said it out loud?" "No, I didn't." He smiled. The symmetrical smile. "You will," he said. I cut the feed. Renya was watching me. "He's listening through the bulkhead," I said. "He's listening through something," she said. "Maybe the bulkhead, maybe not. We need to assume he hears everything we say from here on." "Then we don't say it." I took a piece of grease pencil from the console drawer. The Halcyon keeps grease pencils for marking charts when the screens fail. I wrote on the back of a checklist clipboard, "Surface dark, no lights, no comms, drift east, shipping lane, scuttle Halcyon raft, no beacon." I held it up for Renya. She read it, she nodded once. Then she took the pencil and wrote underneath, "Vin stays in the sphere. Sphere stays sealed. Sphere goes down with the boat." I read it twice. I had known that was the answer from the moment we had isolated the sphere. I had not let myself think the words. Renya, who had been in worse rooms than I had thought them and written them down because somebody had to. I took the pencil back. "Polk?" She wrote, "Polk transfers to the cabin through the equalization lock. Suit on. Decon protocol. We bring Polk. We do not bring Vin." I closed my eyes. I thought about Vin, who had 3 kids, who had walked into the Avery because I'd asked him to, who had picked up a boot in a corridor and could not tell me why because he had not known why. Because picking up the boot had been the first quiet moment of the thing that was now sitting in our rescue sphere, wearing his face. Polk was going to have to be told without Vin hearing. There was no clean way to do that. I wrote, "Polk knows already." Renya looked at me. I wrote, "He's been a medic for 15 years. He knows what isolation means. He hasn't said anything because he's waiting for us to say it first." She nodded. The Halcyon broke the surface at 03:11 local time on a flat black sea, under a sky so thick with cloud that I could not have told you which way was north without instruments. We surfaced with no running lights. We surfaced with no comms. We surfaced silent and dark, and as small as a 60-ton submersible can make herself, which is not very small, but the ocean is generous. And at 3 a.m. under heavy cloud, with our white hull painted dull from the trench's mineral wash, we were close enough to invisible that I let myself believe it. Renya killed the main thrusters. We drifted east on the current at maybe a knot. I unstrapped. My legs did not work for the first 30 seconds. I had been in that seat for 19 hours. "Polk," I said over the intercom. "Pilot. We are at the surface. We are going to transfer you to the cabin through the equalization lock. You are going to suit up in clean rig from the cabin locker. You are going to leave Vin in the sphere. A long pause. Copy. That was all he said. He did not ask. He did not argue. He had known. Vin, I said. There was a silence. Then Vin said, Pilot, you're making a mistake. Maybe. The people on the Avery are fine. The people who came up with what's in the Avery are fine. You don't have to do this. Vin. My name is Vin. I have 3 kids. Their names are Mara, Theo, and Ellis. Mara is 8. She lost a tooth last week. She put it in a box because she wants to keep them. Pilot, my name is Vin. Renya put her hand on my wrist. I said, I know your name, Vin. I'm sorry. Pilot. I cut the intercom. I cut it because if I had listened to him for one more sentence, I would have opened the sphere, and I would have brought him into the cabin, and I would have killed Renya and Polk and myself doing it. I cut it because the thing in there knew Mara's name and her age and the box where she kept her teeth. And that knowledge had not come from Vin, because Vin had never told me about Mara's box. Because Vin was not a man who talked about his kids on dives. The thing in the sphere had pulled that detail out of him the way you pull a thread out of a sweater. And it had used it. And it would keep using everything it had pulled out of him until it had used all of it. And then it would start on the rest of us through whatever channel it had into our heads. We brought Polk through. The equalization lock between the sphere and the cabin is a small steel cylinder, roughly the size of a coffin stood on end. We blew it down on the sphere side, opened the inner hatch just long enough for Polk to step in, sealed it, blew it down again on the cabin side, and brought him through. He was in the lock for 90 seconds. Vin did not try to follow him. Vin sat in his harness and watched Polk go, and the symmetrical smile did not move. Polk came out of the lock and stood in the cabin and did not say anything for a long time. Then he said, I can hear him in my head. What? Vin, I can hear him. He's saying my name. He's saying, Pilot. He's saying things he couldn't know. Polk, listen to me. I'm listening. Whatever you're hearing, it's not Vin. It hasn't been Vin since the boot. We don't know how long the channel stays open after we leave him. We don't know if it closes when we sink the sphere. We don't know if it ever closes. Pilot? Yes. What if it doesn't close? I didn't have an answer. We went up onto the Halcyon sail. The air was warm and wet and smelled like nothing at all, which was the most beautiful thing my lungs had ever been given. The sea was flat. The sky was thick. The horizon was a smear. Renya inflated the raft. We loaded the raft with the survival kit, 2 sealed water cans, a flare gun with 3 flares, and the satellite phone from the emergency locker that we were not going to turn on. I went back inside one more time. Renya did not come with me. Polk did not come with me. They sat in the raft with the painter line still attached to the Halcyon, and they let me have it. I went down to the cabin. I went to the sphere isolation panel. I did not look at the sphere camera feed. I looked at the panel. I blew the ballast on the Halcyon's main tanks. The pumps started. The Halcyon began to settle. I keyed the intercom one last time. Vin. A pause. Then, Pilot? I'm sorry. A longer pause. Then Vin's voice, very tired, very Vin, said, Tell Mara I lost the tooth. I don't know if that was him. I don't know if it was the thing. I don't know if there was a difference by then. I have spent 3 years not knowing. I left the cabin, I climbed the sail, I cut the painter. The raft drifted away from the Halcyon on the slow current, and Renya and Polk and I watched her go down. She went down stern first, the way submersibles do when their rear ballast goes before their forward. The sail was the last thing visible. I watched the sail until the sail was water, and then I watched the water until the water was just water. The sphere went with her. We made the shipping lane in 17 hours. A Panamanian-flagged container ship called the MV Hailong picked us up at sunset on the second day. The captain was a man named Reyes, who asked us no questions, gave us blankets and hot water, and let us off at Apra Harbor in Guam without ever filing our names in his manifest. I do not know why. I have my suspicions. Renya has hers. We have not compared them. The official record is that the Halcyon 3 was lost with all hands at 10,800 meters during a recovery attempt on the Avery 9. There is a memorial. Our names are on it. There are 4 names on it. Mine, Renya's, Polk's, Vin's. We did not contest the record. Renya lives in Lisbon now under a different name. Polk lives somewhere in the interior of British Columbia. I am not going to tell you where I live. We do not speak. We agreed not to. I am writing this because of what happened last week. Mara Vin is 11 years old now. She lives with her mother in San Diego. I have never met her. I have never spoken to her. I know about her box of teeth because Vin's wife mentioned it in an interview 2 years after the memorial with a local news affiliate doing a piece on Navy families. She mentioned the box because Mara had stopped adding to it. Mara stopped adding to it the week we surfaced. I did not think about that for a long time. I did not let myself. Last Tuesday, Vin's wife called me. She had gotten my number through a chain of people I thought were secure. She said she was sorry to bother me. She said she did not know who else to call. She said Mara had started talking in her sleep. She said Mara had been talking in her sleep for about 3 weeks. She said it was not nightmares. Mara was not afraid. Mara was having conversations. Pleasant ones. With someone. She said she had stood in Mara's doorway last Monday night and listened, and Mara had been answering questions. And the questions had been about the Halcyon 3, and the layout of her cabin, and the location of the equalization lock, and the names of the people on the raft. She said Mara, in her sleep, in a voice that was Mara's voice, but with a smile in it that Mara did not have, had said, "Pilot, I lost the tooth." She asked me what to do. I told her to take Mara out of that house. I told her to drive, not fly. I told her not to go to anyone the Navy could reach. I told her I would call her back. I have not called her back yet. I am sitting in a room with the lights off, and I am writing this because I do not know what to do. And I do not know who to tell. And I do not know how the channel stayed open. And I do not know how far it reaches. And I do not know whether sinking the sphere mattered at all, or whether all sinking the sphere did was teach the thing how to travel without one. I keep thinking about the pale surface, holding at 2,000 meters, waiting. It was not done. It was just letting us go.